The John Ultmann Award and Prize is granted at our conference to an individual who has made outstanding contributions to the understanding, research, patient care, advocacy, or education in lymphoma. The prize is sponsored by the SAS Foundation. Dr. Ultmann was an exemplar of the dedicated, compassionate clinical researcher who was a tireless soldier in the battle against lymphoma. Do we have a picture of Dr. Ultmann, please? No, that's Ollie. All right. Dr. Ultmann has had a distinguished career, primarily at the University of Chicago, where he served as director of the Chicago Cancer Research Center. Dr. Ultmann was internationally recognized for his expertise in lymphoma and was influential in the growth and evolution of the field of oncology. He served as chair of the Board of Scientific Counselors of the NCI's Division of Cancer Treatment. He was president and chair of the board of the Association of American Cancer Institutes, and he was also president of the American Society of Clinical Oncology. He is one of the earliest proponents of a multidisciplinary approach to lymphoma, which has served as a paradigm for the treatment of other cancers. In his tenure at the University of Chicago, he trained or mentored many of today's distinguished cancer researchers. We at Cornell are especially proud to note that John served on our house staff during his formative years in hematology. I knew John for a number of years, and I found him to be a brilliant, warm, and engaging man. To honor his memory, the Center for Lymphoma and Myeloma is pleased to present the John Ultmann Award and Prize for contributions to the field of lymphoma to this year's worthy recipient, Dr. Oliver Press. Dr. Press, being the recipient of our John Ultmann Award, was a renowned blood cancer physician who made significant contributions to the development of targeted cancer therapies. Dr. Press passed away on September 29th of complications for glioma, a brain cancer, at the age of 65. The award today will be accepted on his behalf by his wife Nancy and his brother Michael. Dr. Press had an international reputation as a scientist and oncologist specializing in blood cancers, especially lymphoma. He was best known for his impact on the development of radioimmunotherapy. He held a variety of leadership roles in his field and was known for his dedicated mentorship of young investigators. His scientific impact spans the research spectrum from basic science to large-scale clinical trials. Ollie was diagnosed with brain cancer in 2015. At the time of his death, he held the first David and Patricia Giuliani Oliver Press Endowed Chair in Cancer Research at the Fred Hutchinson, and had been a faculty member of the Clinical Research Division since 1986. He also held the Hutchinson's Dr. Penny E. Peterson Memorial Chair for Lymphoma Research from 2001 to 2016. He maintained a joint appointment at the University of Washington, where he was a professor of medicine and adjunct professor of bioengineering. Among Ollie's national leadership roles, he chaired the Scientific Advisory Board for the Lymphoma Research Foundation and co-chaired the National Cancer Institute's Lymphoma Steering Committee. Dr. Press has made a significant impact on research and had a great drive to nurture young researchers and physicians. He was widely recognized for his skill as a mentor, and Ollie mentored 72 people at all stages of their career, many of whom are now prominent in cancer research. For 15 years, Ollie was Associate Director of the University of Washington's MD PhD training program, and from 2014 until 2017 led the Fred Hutchinson University of Washington Cancer Consortium's training program for new oncologists. In February 2017, the Fred Hutchinson unveiled the Ollie W. Press Award for Extraordinary Mentorship, which was created by Press's colleagues to honor his impact on patients and on cancer research. Press received numerous awards and honors during his career, including the inaugural Ollie W. Press Distinguished Alumnus Award from the University of Washington, the Research Visionary Champion Award from the Washington, Alaska chapter of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, a Gold Award for Achievement in Medical Research from the Seattle Business Magazine, and several awards from the Lymphoma Research Foundation, including the organization's Distinguished Service Award, which was bestowed on him jointly with his wife Nancy in the days before his death. I've now asked Dr. David Maloney, who was a close colleague and friend of Dr. Press, to please come up and say a few words. David.
Great, can I have the slide? So what can I say about Ollie? Ollie was a great friend and a colleague to all of us, and it was a great loss to lose him. The picture on the left was, I think, his favorite picture, but the picture on the right is my favorite picture, where Ollie was actually in the clinic interacting with his patients. So Ollie was a scientific genius and way ahead of his time, and I'll show you just a little bit of data that is surprising. He had a commitment to mentorship, and that's through the MD PhD program, as you've heard, with fellows and with junior faculty, and he really had selfless volunteering, and it was a team player. He was a knowledgeable and compassionate oncologist and physician. It was really the true lymphomaniac, I think, is where this really came from. And obviously, lastly, his partnership with Nancy and the family played a very important role. Ollie came from incredibly strong academic roots. His biology degree was from Stanford. He then got a PhD at the UW in biological structures, and then his MD from UW. He and Nancy got married the day after he graduated from his MD degree, and were married for over 35 years. He then went to the East Coast to the Mass General, came back to the UW, did a chief residency and then an oncology fellowship, and then spent all of his career at the University of Washington and at the Fred Hutch. His production as a scholar was just outstanding. He renewed his program project grant in radiolabeled antibody 5 consecutive times. For those of you who know how to do program project grants, this is a huge achievement. His 320 publications and counting, I think actually went up to 321 as of this morning from my email. He was the inaugural chair of the NCI Lymphoma Steering Committee and the scientific director of the Lymphoma Research Foundation, and brought in over $52 million in grants. Well, let me tell you a couple of things you probably didn't remember about Ollie. Number one, he was the first to give an anti-CD20 antibody. This was the murine antibody 1F5, and they treated 4 patients back in the mid-80s, and you can see there was responses to this naked antibody. But Ollie wasn't really satisfied with this because not everybody had a complete remission, and the responses were relatively short. So he really went on to develop this for his career, radioimmunotherapy, with the principle that you could attach a radioactive molecule like iodine and then deliver targeted radiation more to the tumor than to the rest of the patient. And he developed the infrastructure to do this, performed a dose escalation study that determined the maximal tolerated dose, and then combined this with high-dose Cytoxan and etoposide to replace TBI in a standard transplant, and then lastly moved pre-targeted radiation therapy to the clinic. This is one of Ollie's slides from around 2000. This was a historical comparison of the targeted radiation plus Cytoxan and VP16 versus TBI, and showing in a non-randomized setting the superiority of the targeted radiation. And he has patients still alive now 30 years after this treatment. He wasn't satisfied and wanted to move on, and this is just an example of the pre-targeted radiation where you actually put an antibody on the tumor first and then deliver the radiation so that it clears faster from the blood. And when you do this, you can get, on the right side of that slide, you can show that the pre-targeted treatment delivers more specific radiation to the actual tumor. The other thing that you probably don't know about Ollie was he was the first really to give CAR T cells to lymphoma. Yeah, I'm going to talk about CAR T cells, but Ollie was there before all this. This is back, again, early days, and with Brian Till and the group was able to develop in the first generation CAR T cells to treat lymphoma. Now, they didn't work so well in that time, but there were some responses, and it set the stage for what we're now seeing as an exciting area of research. But Ollie was most well known for his mentorship. He was a formal mentor to many scientists and his MD PhD programs, and has received many awards, as you heard. This was the unveiling of his portrait, which he wasn't very happy with his portrait, but it was quite a great time at the Hutchinson Center. But lastly, I want to say a few things about Ollie personally. He loved the outdoors and fishing. He had this fascination with kind of slimy, creepy, crawly things. And Ollie would be probably best happy as crawling around the bottom of a creek bed looking for newts and frogs and salamanders. He had a terrarium full of Korean fire-bellied toads in his office, and had often escaped crickets chirping away in the middle of the night that he was feeding them. He was an avid fisherman, shown with family fishing, and shown with family in the Galapagos with a wife Nancy and two sons, Michael and Maximilian. Nancy was Ollie's partner the whole time, all the way through the career, and is, I think, largely responsible for a lot of Ollie's success. So Ollie, thanks for the shining example of integrity, compassionate care, and scientific excellence. We will always miss you. And I'm really happy that Nancy and Michael, his brother, are here for this award.
Would Nancy and Michael and Mrs. Ultmann please come forward? To assist us in giving out this very special award to Ollie's family, we thought we'd have Mrs. Ultmann say a few words, since she, in fact, knew Ollie very well. Mrs. Ultmann?
I'm too small.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, almost. Dr. Coleman, Dr. Leonard, Dr. Arena, Mrs. Press, and Dr. Michael Press. Firstly, I would like to thank Drs. Coleman and Arena for making this event possible, and to be able to share it with our 2 daughters and 2 granddaughters. This presentation is very different from the previous ones I've made. It brings with it one crying and one smiling eye. The crying eye is for Dr. Oliver Press, who was to be the recipient, but who unfortunately, as we've heard previously, passed away in September. The smiling eye is for the enduring legacy that he leaves behind. He, like my husband John, contributed greatly to the understanding and the treatment of lymphoma, with an enormous impact on science, medicine, and on the lives of many individuals, as we've heard before. Dr. Press taught, trained, and mentored the next generation, who will continue to advance research into the treatments for lymphoma. Dr. Press will be sorely missed, but I'm sure that his wife, Nancy, and his brother, Dr. Michael Press, who is the pathologist, are here to accept the award. To Mrs. Press, Dr. Oliver's dedicated wife, as we've heard, and collaborator in research for all those years, I offer my sincerest warmth and sympathy. Due to Mrs. Press' contributions in the research, she will be a guardian of her husband's incredible legacy. Dr. Press's absence is keenly felt by all, as we've heard, but due to his wide-ranging contributions, his work will continue to echo through the to the direct application, as well as through its place as a guide to the other researchers. I would now like to...
Careful, don't fall off the stool. Nancy and Michael, please come and accept the $2,000 SAS Award prize in honor of Ollie's memory. And I'd like to give you this plaque, which says, the SAS Foundation for Medical Research and the Center for Lymphoma and Myeloma at Weill Cornell Medicine present the John Ultmann Award to Oliver Press, MD, PhD, for his outstanding contributions to the treatment of lymphoma research, presented at Lymphoma Myeloma 2017. And again, it's our great pleasure to honor Ollie's memory. I believe you wanted to say a few words. Please. Thank you, Ms. Ultmann. Nancy, would you?
I'm honored to receive this award from my late husband, Ollie Press. We met as undergrads at Stanford when he was 18 and I was 17, and we've been together until he died a month ago. We always collaborated, but for the last 12 years, I worked directly for him as his research administrator and his lab manager. I was a medical librarian before that. Therefore, I know firsthand how much he valued his colleagues, the people in this room. I want to assure you that Ollie knew about the award in early July, and he was very pleased, especially when looking at the list of illustrious people who had received this award before him. We talked again about the award just the day before he died, when he knew he couldn't be here, and he asked me to give his thanks to Drs. Coleman and Leonard and all of you in the room. I also want to add there's no one more appropriate to give this lecture than Dr. David Maloney. Ollie always used to say that if I ever got lymphoma, he'd send me straight to David. Thank you also for my brother-in-law, Mike, for joining me. By the way, he has a pathologist son named Oliver Press.
Thank you. Ollie and Nancy asked me to attend this ceremony, at least partly because I was a combined MD, PhD medical student at the University of Chicago when John Ultmann was actively engaged in research, patient care, teaching, and leading the Cancer Center. I think John would have been pleased with the selection of Ollie to receive his namesake award. Ollie exemplified everything that Dr. John Ultmann stood for: excellence in research, outstanding patient care, distinguished teaching, exemplary mentoring, and visionary leadership. We're delighted that Ollie was selected to receive this prestigious award. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.